Hi, I'm Steve Bradley, and welcome to our small group study called Real Relationships. Now, if you think about it, and especially as I hope you do think about it over the next 6 or 7 weeks, our relationships are really what we're all about. It defines us better than anything else. In fact, our relationships is the common thing among us. We were all built for relationships. We all realize that we need relationships. And also, our greatest satisfaction always comes from our relationships. It's just who we are. In the Bible, when Jesus is asked what was most important, he spoke of relationships. He said, you need to learn to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your spirit. And then he said, and you need to learn to love your neighbor as yourself. So he is emphasizing the importance and the primary importance of relationships in our life. If you look at the book of Galatians, when Paul is writing to them, this is what he said about God's Spirit coming to live inside of us and what he produces in us. He says the fruit of the Spirit, or what the Spirit produces, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Now, all of those things have to do with relationships. They're qualities that he produces in us, that's relational, but they're also qualities that make our relationships work so much better. They make us so much closer to people. And so over the next couple of weeks, as we look at relationships, we're going to talk about things that we do right, things that we do wrong, how we are going to change in some of the ways that we do things, how we relate to other people and how that affects them, how we relate to other people and how that now affects us and our most meaningful relationships. In the Gospel according to John, this is what he says about even Jesus himself coming. This is in chapter number 1. He says this, but although the world was made through him, that's relational. He says the world didn't recognize him when he came. That's also relational. Even in his own land and among his own people, he was never accepted. But to all who believed in him and accepted him, he gave the right, listen to this, to become children of God. They are reborn. In fact, he will later say, so the Word, that was another way to refer to Jesus, became human and lived on earth among us. And then it says that he was filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. He was filled with truth and great compassion and mercy upon us. And then later in verse 18 it says, no one has ever seen God. Now that would make relationships more difficult, but listen to this. But his only Son, who is God himself, is near to the Father's heart. He has told us about him. Now that means he has revealed God to us. And he's revealed to us God to us by coming in person, in flesh and blood, walking, talking, sitting, standing, just like we do in order to relate to us and in order that we could know God and we could build a relationship with God. We're calling this Real Relationships, and we came up with an acrostic for real because I think it's a good guide that if you could look at these 4 things and say, how am I doing in these 4 things? Because this is what relationships is all about, at least real, authentic, healthy, growing, and life-giving relationships. The R stands for reject, because in relationships, you learn to reject some things. You may have had an idea about certain people or a certain person, and then found out as you build a relationship, you know what? That idea was wrong. What I thought or how I had already determined this person was is nothing like they really are. It's one of the values of building a relationship with someone, getting to know someone. It's the value of us building a relationship with God. You may have ideas about what God is like, and then you build a relationship. You learn more about him. You grow in your relationship, and you find out, you know what, I was wrong. He is totally different than I thought he was. The E stands for what we expect, or expectations. Because in all relationships, we come in with some expectations. But many times as we build those relationships, as we interact, they change. And we realized the expectations we had before were maybe unrealistic. Maybe those expectations were false, or maybe they were just overblown. And if I don't change those expectations and learn what really could happen in a relationship, then I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be frustrated. We've probably all gone into a relationship with unrealistic expectations, only to find out if I were more realistic, if I expected the right things, or if I expected better things, these relationships would work out a lot better in my life. The A, so we've got reject, accept. The A stands for expect. The A stands for accept. And the wonderful thing about relationships is you learn to accept some things about some other people. You learn to accept some things about yourself that you might not have believed were true before. We often talk about when someone becomes a Christian that they have accepted Jesus into their life. And that means they have accepted Jesus as who he is, the truth about him. And they've built a relationship based on who Jesus really is. That builds trust. That makes the relationship work. It builds closeness. It builds intimacy, all because they've learned to accept things that are true as well as reject some things that are false. And then the L stands for learn, because relationships are learned. We learn them from our parents. We may have learned some bad relationship skills through someone who mistreated us or who led us in the wrong direction. But the good thing is, if you can learn bad relationship habits, you can learn good ones. You can unlearn some things. You can let go of some things and accept and build into your life some new skills and talents and some new relationship skills in your life. So we're going to take a look at a lot of relationships. Some of the things that didn't work, people are going to talk about over the next 6 or 7 weeks, some of the things that they failed at, only to find out that there were some better things that they could build in their relationships. We're going to talk about how you start relationships, how you reach out to people in relationships. Maybe even some relationships that you realize, that can be very toxic to me. I might need to avoid that relationship, or maybe I'm just not mature enough, strong enough yet to be able to work on a relationship like that. So I hope this week is productive for you. I hope the next 6 or 7 weeks are productive. Hope you learn a lot, and that you have some great discussions, build some great relationships, some real relationships with some new people. Thanks for coming.